There we go. Brilliant. Good morning, everyone. I can see people filling in as we speak. A very warm welcome to the third ever Moreno Power Hour tasting, which looks like it's going to be the most popular one overall, which is great to see. Again, just in allowing a couple of minutes while people join us. This is the third of four Power Hour virtual tastings we're doing. The first ever ones we've done, so certainly feedback is welcome on future ones that we'll no doubt do. The first two, by the way, are now available on YouTube for anyone that missed those, and some of you may have got a link in an email as well. So do catch up on those if you've got your time. So we started with New Wave Spain a couple of weeks ago. We had Moreno Faves last week. Like I say, all available now, glitches and all to view again. So this week we have new kids on the block. And next week, by the way, our last one for this season, if you like, is Made by Moreno. What is Made by Moreno? I hear you say, well, you'll have to tune in next week to find out. And they're all meant to be a quick, relaxed webinar kind of format. And yeah, please do ask questions as we go as well. Really encourage that down in the either the Q&A or the chat at the bottom. Where we'll pick those up and put them to the winemakers as we go. Really good opportunity to get those across. May I introduce the team again as well? So I'm Mike, I look after the north for Moreno, North and Wales. And we have Hamish, who is on the call, looks after Scotland and the sales team. We've got Simon, who looks after the south. We have Pete, who looks after London. And then we have Nick and Harry, as I say, without whom we could not function. So on today, yeah, so we've got new kids on the block today. So this is all wines that have joined us recently. Two of them just before Christmas and one just a bit earlier in 2020 last year as well. And we've got some serious quality today, actually, some really exciting wines and good variation as well. We've got rosé, fizz, white, and we've got red. So definitely something for everyone today. So just to confirm, the wines you should have in front of you are the Rispato Pet Nat from Anasanti. Can't really confuse the label with anything else. A very bright, colourful turquoise pink label. We have the Botchin's White Priorat from Finca Tabella. And we have the Masusta Garnacha from Navarra. So those are the three we're tasting today. We have a special guest joining us today as well, Chris, who will be translating for our last producer as well. Now, Chris's surname may look familiar to customers of Moreno. Chris Groshek is the brother of Nick Groshek. And if no one's ever met Nick, he's going to hate me for this, but just imagine Chris without hair. That's Nick. Thanks for Chris for joining us today as well. And yeah, just to note, unfortunately, our first producer today has had to at a late stage drop out with an excuse that you could not make up. He's actually fallen out of an olive tree and hurt himself. And actually, once we talk about the estate, it becomes more believable that is in fact the truth as well. So I'm going to talk us through the first wine as well. So like I say, if you've got any questions at all, please just pop them in the chat and the Q&A down the bottom. Particularly for the second two, where we've got far more knowledgeable people than myself to talk about the wines. I'll try my best for the first one. So without further ado, just going to move on to the first wine, which is the Rispato Pet Nat. So this is from a producer called Anasanti, and they're based in a town named Arone in the Valnerina Valley in Umbria. It's sort of in the south of Umbria on the border with Lazio. So it's only about an hour and a half drive north of Rome. And they are actually the only producer within this valley, which is quite rare for wine producers. Normally they're kind of in a huddle. They are next door to the Marmore waterfalls as well, which if you Google are quite stunning waterfalls, and actually the tallest man-made waterfalls in the world at 541 feet. The property itself is situated over 20 hectares, and actually they grow a lot of other crops there as well. And in fact, wine has only been a fairly recent addition to the estate. They have more of a history with cereals, legumes, and indeed olives as well. So I guess one of the more interesting things about this estate as well is it is a family estate. It's been in the family for a few generations, but Francesco, who's now head of the operation, is the first to really make a run with wine. Previously, it's been, like I say, other agricultural cultural products. So, but they still do make their own olive oil, their own honey as well from the beehives they have on the estate. And indeed, actually, the winery that it now operates out of used to be an old animal barn that Francesco's converted. I say it would be lovely to have on him, because he'd probably say something like, it's from his blurb, this cellar has a very long memory. I look at it and I can still smell the smell and the warmth of the cows and the calves that have heated it for more than half a century. And now, after several generations, it is getting used to the aromas and the warmth of wine. So yeah, sorry you can't have the magic of Francesco on, but that's where he's looking. He's looking more towards wine. I should say the estate has always kind of practiced biodynamically as well, be it through any other crop and now with wine today as well. So Francesco himself, he's just approaching his 40th birthday. He has a degree in natural sciences, and he started on the kind of wine project kind of thing back in 2012, so not too long ago either. And as I say, it's a generational family estate, but not in the usual way you might see in more classic regions or with historic producers. So onto the wine itself. So wine is called Raspato. It is made from a blend of 80% Sangiovese and 20% Aleatico. I'm sure everyone's heard of Sangiovese. Aleatico, a lot rarer. I think there's only about 100 hectares or so in total in Italy. And actually it's I believe, quite famous for a cult wine that comes off the island of Elba. But it also has a strong relation with Muscat, actually. So it does add nice kind of grapey quality to the wine. So the wine is a Pétillant Naturel, which obviously means it's made from the Méthode Ancestrale, and Pétillant obviously being the much kind of cooler, trendier, reinvigorated name and category for a production method that has centuries and centuries of history. So just to go into a bit more with that and the wine, they start a kind of normal fermentation with stems and skins included in a tank, and then after a little while, they Francesco hand bottles every bottle basically, which I imagine is a hell of a lot of work. 25,000 bottles is quite low production, but it's a hell of a lot to fill by hand. And then the fermentation continues in the bottle, creating a sort of frisant, semi-sparkling style. So, which I'm sure you've all opened it now, but I know the first time I opened it, I was quite nervous kind of opening the cap, but it is frisant rather than spumante. So hopefully there's no kind of, not too much anxiety once you open your second bottle of this. So yeah, in terms of winemaking, apart from the obvious hard work involved, it's fairly straightforward. It's minimal intervention. Obviously, it's not filtered once finished. And I'm sure some of you are noticing the sediment in the bottom there. And there is no sulfur added to the wine whatsoever at all. So this is real kind of classic natural, if there's such a thing as classic natural winemaking at its best, hopefully, as well. None of Anisanti don't oak any of their wines, actually, and obviously with this one there's none either in the start or at any process with this. Some of the other wines, which I'll just touch on in a second, do use amphora, or it's all stainless steel. The wine is a vintage wine, so we're tasting 2019 today. I've got my sample here, and we won't be far off moving on to the 2020 as well. Just a note on the swing top as well, because I'm sure most people like, well, if you're used to pet nats, majority I've seen anyway come with a crown cap. And why, you know, with the ethos of natural wine and things like that, why we're using plastic. The plastic is actually 100% recyclable, or made from recyclable materials. So it's quite an innovative screw cap made by a company called Tapi. And then, yeah, just onto the labels as well. I'm just going to get Hamish to share a little story, because I'm sure some people looked at my label and thought, no, I've got a different one. They actually do 3 different labels across what is the same wine, and it's kind of randomly allocated with each case. The 3 together sort of tell a story, if you like. So I've got the last one on the right there. Props for pronouncing the first name right, but Lucio loaded the jugs of wine to bring them home to Terrasona. And instead of going home, he stops at the bar with Pinch to play cards and drink wine. Terrasona waits in vain for his return, looking out at the window and ready to insult him. So these are really cool labels. They certainly drew our eyes to it. And they actually change with each vintage as well. And actually, just before we came online, I just checked Anasanti's Instagram, and I saw some interesting bright pink looking labels on what looked like their Sparta wine. So again, yes, you can get different labels for the same wine. Don't be shocked and think it's a different wine within the range either. In terms of the tasting note as well, I don't want to give you kind of too much description, because hopefully you'll enjoy it for what it is and you'll pick up what you pick up. But I think I've tasted a lot of natural wines that and there's so much discussion about it, isn't it, that are just plain faulty essentially, and they sort of get away with it with saying, oh, we're natural wine. But I really like this. This has a cleanness to it. It has a freshness to it. It's got that kind of classic cider appley sort of character, but lovely sort of fresh red fruit as well, I think, from the red grapes. So yeah, it's certainly having a bit more of a sort of classic palate, I'd say. It's, natural wines hasn't been something I've really drunk on my own, although I appreciate them. But this, I've enjoyed a couple of bottles recently. It's something that really appeals to me. I say it just has a cleanliness to it and a freshness, which I really enjoy. Just checking a couple of questions here as well. Does Risparto mean anything? I don't believe so. I don't know whether we didn't actually get an answer. I think it's the name that's just been thought up for the wine, and whether it's a conjugation of Rosado and Spumante Frizzante or something like that. And how long does it ferment in the bottle? Why do you use the bottle? So answer is not long. They certainly don't do an extended lees aging, because we're on obviously 2019, and we're actually picking up some 2020s very soon that are basically ready. So they can only been in the bottle for 2 or 3 months or so max. So there isn't a huge autolytic character as well, which again adds to that kind of that fresher style of it. So just to talk about a couple of other wines from the range that we're doing as well. We are doing the Ninfa del Nero, which is a blend of a few different local grapes. And then one of the best, most kind of textural wines I've ever tried actually is the Acqua della Serpa Bianco. Comes in a beautiful bottle as well. I've actually got them behind me, but it's a bit far back. That is kind of one of the most sort of textural mouth-feely sort of white wines I've ever tried, actually, and I really do recommend giving it a go. And to try a wine of that quality with no oak kind of influence, and just see what great grapes and great winemaking can do, is quite an experience, actually. So I'd certainly recommend that one. Spends 10 months on lees as well, so that's where you get some of that texture from. So we have started with 3 wines from Anna Santi. Like I said, we only brought them in just before Christmas, but they've largely been received well, and really welcome your feedback today as well. So I don't know if there were, hopefully I've done Francesco justice. Obviously it would have been great to have him on, but hopefully maybe we'll have him in the future for one of his other wines. But if anyone did have any other questions, do pop them over, or I will look through if they come through once we move on to our second producer as well. But yeah, thank you very much for listening to me.
Mike, would you mind just grabbing that bottle, especially the amphora aged one?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, just behind me.
So you've got the labels to look at. Because the Aqua di Serpa is absolutely mind blowing.
It is beautiful, yeah. So we've got the Ninfa del Nera, which is just slightly cheaper than the Rispato. And then we've got the Aqua della Serpa there as well, which is absolutely beautiful. Beautiful wax blue top as well. But yeah, just a really, like I say, really textural, kind of mouth covering white wine with no hint of oak either. And don't get me wrong, I love oak, but it's nice to have something that big and that rich without the vanilla and the toast and the cedar. So yeah, really, really interesting wines. Like I say, all kind of handmade by Francesco, biodynamically practicing. And yeah, a really, really cool producer to have.
And Mike, just a very quick question from Riaz. Do you happen to know the residual on the Rispato?
I don't know what it is, but I know it's low. So it is very dry, and it's also 12% alcohol. So I don't think it's more than 4 or 5 grams per liter. I don't know the exact figure, but obviously pet nats can often have quite a bit of RS left in them, but they have fermented to 12. They're also lower alcohol, so fermented to 12% and kept it pretty dry with this one.
And Mike, have you found much bottle variation? I know we've tried a few bottles now. I haven't spotted.
No, I haven't. I honestly haven't. Yeah, I know. Obviously there is a bit of fermentation that goes on in the tank as well, where it's all homogenized before it finishes off in the bottle. So that certainly helps with the consistency. But no, I haven't either. And again, fermenting to dryness probably helps, keeps some consistency. Nothing happens after it's been released. So,
thank you.
Anyways, how stable are they vis-a-vis shelf life? Remains to be seen. We hadn't had any anything come back yet. And again, they are dry, so with a high-ish alcohol for this type of wine at 12%. So there are elements there that should indicate it will taste stable. Brilliant. Are they both 100% natural as well? Again, as whatever their definition of natural, they certainly don't add sulfur to these, or at absolute minimum. So I would answer yes to that for sure. So yeah.
Mike, just a final question coming from Jude from Hannibal Brown. Does the producer have any suggested food pairings? This might be one that I get back to you on, Jude.
Yeah, I think so. I'm always fairly flexible with food recommendations as a whole, and I'll personally try very weird combinations. But yeah, let's see if Francesco's got a proper answer to that. I think I'm making one up. Brilliant. I will move on to a second producer. If you do have any more questions, just pop them in and we'll circle back at the end. But I hope to be able to introduce Nuria Tabea from Finca Tabea in just a second. who's joining us from Priorat. Good morning, Nuria. I think you're just on mute there if you want to unmute yourself. There we are.
Hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah. Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good stuff.
Nice to be with you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you very much for joining us. So yeah, News joining for us from Finca Tabea in Priorat, and we're actually going to the white side of Priorat today. So I was just hoping you could take a few minutes to talk us through Botchins and your very interesting history as well, and how you met your other half in Finca Tabea as well. And yeah, just talk us through your wonderful wine.
Okay. Yes. My name, as you said, is Nuria Tobela. My last name is the name of kind of the company. Finca means estate in Spanish, so we are a state-grown winery, or project. We are a team of 2 people, me and my husband, Johan Lipscomb. The story behind, we were established in 2003, and the story about us is that we met studying viticulture and enology in California at the University of Davis, and after meeting there and working also in several wineries in the States, finally we came back to, well, I came back and I brought John with me, and we started this project in 2003 in Priorat. We, I don't know, do you see the logo of the company in your screen?
You want me to share it?
Yes, please.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. Hopefully this comes through.
There's John.
Yeah, great.
There we go.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to show you the logo because it also tells about our origin. We are in Priorat, which I suppose that you know where it is, but if not, I'll remind you. It's an area that that it's in the northwest of Spain. It's south Barcelona. It's about 60 kilometers from the seaside. So we are a little bit inland, but we are we have Mediterranean climate, even though we are a little bit inland, because the breeze from the sea it comes pretty easy. We are located in the city of Gratallops, which is our origin for the vineyards and the wines. And the logo kind of like tells you a little bit about it. The symbol of Gratallops, which is the town where we are in, is a wolf with a pine tree, which is kind of like what you see, but it's the logo is the opposite. The wolf is kind of like scratching the tree, which that's what means Gratallops. Gratallops in Catalan means a wolf scratching a tree. So that's why I wanted to kind of show you or share you with you that. Talking about the Priorat and the vineyards, we own about 20 hectares of vineyards. We have planted several varieties of reds, which is mostly the traditional grapes that are planted in Priorat, but we also have about 3.5 hectares of white, which is the wine that we're going to talk about today. We have Grenache, white Grenache and Viognier, which is the blend that we use to make this wine. Can you show some of the pictures from the vineyard? Yeah, you just can pass them. So as you can see, the orography is quite different. We are established on terraces or slopes that are not very pronounced, but they are still, you know, there is some pendant in the vineyards. We have our vineyards were planted a lot in 2003 and 2004, so they have quite a few years now. But we also, when we bought the vineyards, we had some plots that they were with really ancient vines, about 80 or 90 years old, that they are mostly Carignan, and we make a wine from these very old vines that it's called ancients. On top of that, what is also very characteristic from Priorat is the soil. We have what it's called in Catalan licorella, and it's translated as slate. So that's what really makes it quite different, the wines from Priorat. The soil that it's slate, that it's pretty acidic, impairs some taste and characteristics to the wines. This would be a very old vine that I was talking about 80 or 90 years old. The vines that are really old, they really produce very small quantities of grapes, about half a kilo of grapes. So the wines tend to be very concentrated. I don't know if you can see the slate. I have in my hand some of the slate in that I just took it to share with you. Can you see myself?
Can you? Yeah, we can. But will you lift it up in front of your face?
Yeah, like that. Can you see?
Oh, cool.
Okay, so you see, it breaks really easy. So that's what makes that the roots of the vines go inside and go deep and deep, because they need to go really deep to get some of the nutrients and water, because the area is also pretty dry. We have not very much rain over the year, and sometimes it's kind of it's becoming a little bit difficult. But over the years, the vines are adapted to this climate, and they just produce great wines and grapes anyway. On top of the soil and also the varieties, the climate, as I said, it's a climate that it's Mediterranean. It's quite hot there, but we are lucky because we are above 360 meters on the top of the vineyard. So this makes that the grapes can kind of like cool off at night, and that allows us to have really good contrast between the temperatures of the day and the night, and allows us to have grapes with really concentrated aromas, and also beautiful color with good anthocyanins, or the color structure of the wine. That would be probably the explanation about our vineyards and Priorat, and why the wines are how they are. I could continue if you want to talk about specifically about the white wine. This would be the label of the wine. Can you see it?
Just a little higher, Nuria.
Higher? Okay.
Yeah.
So as Mike said, it's kind of unique to have a white wine from Priorat. There is not much white grape vineyards planted in Priorat. This was something that I always wanted to do. So when we started the project, we decided to plant some of these grapes. White Grenache. This is a wine that it's a blend of two vineyards, of two grapes. Sorry, White Grenache and Viognier. White Grenache is a variety that is original from Priorat, so it's kind of a very good variety in the sense of adapted to the climate. It is very resistant to drought and really high temperatures, so it allows you to make a wonderful wine from it. Viognier was brought later on. When we planted it, it was just accepted by the DO, so it took kind of a while to be able to have it in our vineyards register, but now it's accepted, and there are many providers or vineyards here, that wineries, that they also make wines with Viognier. These two varieties complement each other. The white Grenache tends to have more glycerol and body, and it's kind of more voluptuous. And the Viognier has much more finesse and some of these notes in the aroma, you know, like peaches and, you know, some kind of floral notes. So I think that they are really good together because they balance very well. The wine, we make this wine in stainless steel. We ferment, you know, we're kind of UC Davis winemakers, so we are always tend to be called too technical, but you know, we're kind of proud of it. So I think that we're just taking the advantage of being technical and applying it to make just wines that, you know, just being technical doesn't mean that you intervene a lot. We don't like to intervene on the winemaking. We just kind of let, you know, the grapes speak, you know, into what they are in the wine. But we like to control things, so, you know, things don't get out of handle. So that's how we work. We like to use stainless steel, and we use really low temperatures, so we can obtain, you know, really fruity and intense aromas. And then part of this wine, 30% of the white Grenache, we fermented in oak, in 300 liters barrels from French oak. And after the fermentation, we let this wine to stay for at least 6 months sur lease. So we do some batonnage. That kind of helps to round up the wine and, you know, making it kind of easier. So after we have this batonnage finish, we blend everything together, and we have the wine sitting in the tank as long as we need to. So it stabilizes by cold. We don't usually use any you know, additives or things like that. We just use cold temperatures to stabilize the wine, and after we just filter and bottle it. I don't know, you probably have the 2019 wine, right? Because we are just now going to bottle the 2020. We finished the 2019, and the 2020 is going to be quite an interesting wine this year. We had really a quite complicated harvest. I guess that 2020 had to be complicated, like it has been for everybody. So we are organic, as I said, and this year we had quite rain during the springtime in 2020, and we got some kind of mildew infection on the vineyards. We were trying to stop it, and we did as much as we could, but we lost quite a bit of our production. Our production of the vineyards went down up to, you know, 40%. So I guess that, you know, that's nature. It's kind of not very good, but, you know, that's what happened. And hopefully next year will be much better. Priorat tends to be a really easy place to grow grapes, and the viticulture tends to be easy because, you know, the climate, it's quite dry, but, you know, sometimes you have a strange year, and 2020 was that one. Talking about the wine, I don't know if you have in your hands some of you the wine just to taste it. I suppose that you have already tasted, but, you know, just kind of to tell you how I describe it. I would say that it's kind of a, you know, yellow greenish color. Has it's kind of dense on the glass. You can see that it has a lot of glycerol. You know, wines from Priorat tend to have high alcohols. We managed to have this one at 14. which is really low for Priorat. I know that it seems high, but our mean average for alcohols are between 14.5, 15. You know, we picked these grapes in August, so we are always really early picking them up compared to other varieties, just to get, you know, less alcohol also for the wine. So it's kind of greenish, yellowish color on the nose. I don't know. It's for me, it's really nice. You can get this peach and citrus and tropical notes. You don't notice very much the oak. This is intentional. The oak is just kind of to give, especially some kind of better palate to the wine, so more sweetness to it, but not really to impair anything or much into the nose. And in the mouth, it's really round and you know, it lasts a long time. It's fresh also, as I said, you know, Licorella gives a lot of acidity to the soil. So that makes that, even though it's a wine that it's, you know, very ripe, it has this freshness in the mouth and this minerality from the soil. So I think that this would kind of describe the wine. And if I should recommend something to eat with it, I like to eat it with fish and shellfish. You know, in Spain we eat a lot of fish, so we like to share that with wines like Bocins. And also it goes well with rice dishes, with maybe chicken salads, you know, something kind of lighter, not very, you know, heavy, but it just blends well and pairs well with this wine. I don't know if you guys have any questions or.
Yeah, thanks very much, Neri. One, well, two parts question that's just come in. What was the first vintage of the white, and also how long would you keep a Bossins for generally? When will it be at its best?
The first vintage was 2017, so we haven't done many vintages from this wine. I think that the wine will keep for very well for at least, if you have it in good conditions, 2-3 years. It's even though it's a white, it has this backbone and this acidity itself that I would kind of, if it's comparable to kind of like a Burgundy style wines, you know, that they kind of can last long in the bottle, and they kind of evolve and they get, you know, different aromas, but you know, they are still very enjoyable.
Yeah, I certainly want to put one down and see what it's like in 5 years.
Yeah.
Just from me, on the Viognier side of things, did you, as soon as it was approved, did you think I really want that in my wine, or was it already planted as part of the vines that you bought? What was the decision behind?
No, I worked before with Viognier in other places, and I really fall in love with this variety because I thought it was, you know, really great and different. So yeah, it was planted on purpose to know that at some point, someday, we will make a white that would have Viognier. What we were not sure about was the percentages, you know, like if it would be more Viognier or more Grenache, or how would we just, you know, make one or the other. But, you know, 70 Grenache, 30 Viognier has worked pretty well. I think that I mean, the backbone has to be Grenache, because also Grenache is the original variety from Priorat, and we think that this is something valuable that we have to stand for. But, you know, sometimes Grenache lacks a little bit of intensity, or, you know, I think we really believe in blends, you know, that, you know, not just single varietal wines, just kind of like getting some blends, and kind of like one complements the other.
Yeah, very good. No, thank you very much. I'm just going to say, because I think you're too modest as well, but Nuria, when sort of glossed over the fact that where she met John was UC Davis, which is, well, not arguably, it is the kind of premier viticultural research place in the world, really. Because you've also got experience with Torres, haven't you? Who are
yeah, I work in Torres for a while. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely expert in what you do there. I'd love to carry on chatting, but I'm aware of the time, so we'll thank you very much for taking us through marketing. Hopefully everyone's enjoying that. I know it's a favorite of mine.
Okay.
And yeah, we'll catch up soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. See you soon. So we will move on to our last producer of the day, which is Louis Moya, who will be accompanied by Chris Groshek, who's going to translate for us today. So Louis is the head of LMT Wines. I will leave him to talk more through, but we're going to be tasting the Masusta Garnacha today. So Chris, Louis, if Louis could just talk us through LMT Wines, a bit about himself, and then move on to Masusta, the wine we're tasting today. That'd be fantastic.
Okay, perfect. Good morning, everybody. Ok, Luis, si tú puedes empezar y explicar un poco de tu historia y tu proyecto y todo esto.
Perfecto, pues nada, lo primero, gracias, thank you everybody for all this tasting moment. Okay. Siento mucho no hablar inglés, agradezco a Chris que me ayudara en la traducción. Y nada, soy Luis Moya, de acuerdo, de LMT Wines. Es un proyecto de recuperación básicamente de pequeños viñedos de garnacha, ¿de acuerdo? En Navarra. Navarra está al norte de España, zona prácticamente central. Nos encontramos como vecinos al sur a Rioja y al norte País Vasco, ¿de acuerdo? Llevamos haciendo vino desde 2011. Empezamos con el vino que vamos a catar, que es Masusta, y pues hemos ido añadiendo otras referencias. Son Quimera, Mala Sombra, Izarbe, Yesal, etcétera.
Okay, Luis, déjame traducirlo un poco. Okay, so first of all, Luis apologizes that he cannot, do the presentation in English, but I'm sure we will manage absolutely fine with this. So he says his project started in 2011 and it's focused primarily on sort of small parcels of garnacha, primarily located within Nevada, which I'm sure you're all familiar with the area. So it's located sort of between Rioja and Pamplona to the north as well. Okay, Luis, continúa, por favor.
Vale, perfecto. Bueno, la idea básica de trabajo en cuanto a las viñas es trabajar de forma orgánica, ¿vale? Trabajamos sin herbicida, lógicamente, sin productos sistémicos, no insecticidas, cobre y azufre para defendernos de los hongos, del mildiu, que hemos tenido un muy mal año, cosecha 20 con muchos problemas de mildiu, que no estamos habituados. Y desbrozamos a mano las cubiertas vegetales, a excepción del viñedo de Masusta, que es un poquito más grande, es 1,5 hectáreas, y ahí sí que para la calle utilizamos un tractor.
Okay, so primarily they try to work in an organic way in all of the vineyards. So obviously this is meaning so they're not using any sort of herbicides and pesticides and okay, so Luis will now just show you a few pictures as well of the vineyard, which is used for the Masusta wine. But like I say, so everything is they try to work with everything in an organic way. So no pesticides, no herbicides, and they try to keep things as natural as possible during during all the work during the year. Okay, Luis, continúa.
Ok, en bodega la idea también es básicamente trabajar sin hacer demasiado. Usamos bacterias indígenas para hacer maloláctica cuando lo hace, fermentamos una levadura indígena, no clarificamos nunca los vinos, no filtramos prácticamente ningún vino, no hacemos correcciones, ¿de acuerdo? Limpiamos los vinos por decantación, nos ayudamos normalmente en 2 inviernos, ¿de acuerdo? El frío siempre nos va a ayudar a posar los vinos, a limpiarlos. Y bueno, aplicamos dosis bajas de sulfuroso dependiendo un poco del tipo de vino.
Okay, so in the bodega, so they work with indigenous yeast varieties and also bacteria to aid with the malolactic fermentation. And they also sort of employ cold stabilization practices. So they only like to decant the wines as a mode of sort of refining and filtration. Or in fact, there is no filtration, there is only decanting of the wines as a form of clarification. Okay, Luis?
Ok. Bueno, soy muy pequeño como hemos comentado, las viñas voy encontrando en diversas zonas, ¿de acuerdo? Estoy en una producción total para el año cosecha 2020 de 16.000 botellas en total. Con lo cual ya pues acabo un poco con esto y empezamos con el vino, si me parece.
Disculpa, Luis, ¿cuántas botellas?
16.000 en total de todos los vinos.
Okay, so Luis is just sort of reiterating that he's a very, very small bodega. He only works with very, very small plots of land. And so for the 2020 year, he's only made 16,000 bottles of wine in total across all of the different wines. Okay, Luis, empezamos con las fotos.
Genial.
So we'll start with some of the photos now.
¿Se ve alguna?
Sí, podemos verlos.
¿Se ven pasar?
No, no están pasando las fotos.
No están pasando las fotos. Ahora. A ver, ahora.
Just going to interrupt while Louis finding that there, because I forgot to say, and had it in my notes to say at the start, happy birthday, Feliz cumpleaños to Louis, because he is joining us on his birthday as well.
Perdón, ¿qué ha
So
dicho?
we appreciate you giving up the time on your birthday. That's...
¿Ahora?
No.
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 Algo está fallando. Pues hablamos del vino, ¿vale?
Sí,
Venga, pues
creo que es
hablamos.
mejor.
Se me da muy bien.
Okay, so we'll continue with the wines.
Okay. Masusta es una parcela de 1 hectárea casi media, ¿de acuerdo? Una parcela que se encuentra en el pueblo de Cárcar, Ribera Alta de Navarra. Nos encontramos con 3 terrazas superpuestas. Es la parcela más grande que trabajo yo. El tipo de parcelas medio de los que hablamos suelen ser de media hectárea, ¿de acuerdo? Nos encontramos con suelos aluviales, más bien profundos y con mucho canto rodado en superficie. ¿Vale? Es una viña que tiene aproximadamente 70 años. Es un vaso transformado en una espaldera. En su momento se arrancaron hileras para poner una espaldera, básicamente con la idea de facilitar la recogida, de poder entrar con tractor a la recogida. Clima.
Okay.
Vale, habla.
Sí, gracias, Luis. Okay, so the vineyard is approximately 1.5 hectares in size. So this is spread over sort of 3 main terraces and actually is the largest vineyard that Luis works with. So as you can imagine, most of the other plots are very, very small. It approximately has sort of 70 years, so it's 70 years old. And as you can see, so the training of the vineyard is sort of in this sort of double gear system. Ok, Luis.
Vale, hablamos de un clima muy austero, muy seco, 400 litros al año aproximadamente. Mucho calor en verano. Definiríamos un poco el clima como un mix de clima continental, clima mediterráneo, ¿de acuerdo? Donde la garnacha, que es una variedad rústica por excelencia, con una gran capacidad de introducir las raíces en la tierra y de producir, pues bueno, un poco estos vinos, ¿no? Y bueno, una parcela con mucho encanto, ¿de acuerdo? Y no sé si estamos viendo ya las fotos.
No, solo podemos ver como un surtido de las fotos, pero nada en concreto.
Vale. Pues eso es un poco, ya puedes comentar.
Okay, so if I just explain a little bit about the climate, so he's saying that the vineyard is very, very dry. Obviously, the soil is very poor as well, and the Garnacha tends to be a great variety that really reflects this terroir of where it comes from. So he's saying that there's only approximately sort of 400 liters of rainfall per year, which is very, very dry. But the Garnacha really sort of seems to thrive in these conditions. Okay, Luis.
Un poco el punto clave de la garnacha, cuando hablamos de maduración, de comienzo de vendimia, siempre va a ser encontrar el punto de equilibrio en lo que es el balance alcohólico, es decir, tú te puedes ir un fin de semana a la playa y cuando vienes te encuentras la garnacha con 16 grados de alcohol, con muy baja, ¿no? Con todos los problemas que quedan, ¿no? Con lo cual es muy importante el seguimiento del momento óptimo de la vendimia para intentar conseguir los vinos balanceados. Estamos hablando de Masusta, un vino que tiene 14 grados y medio, pero un pH de 3,4. Es decir, un nivel de alcohol más o menos elevado con un nivel de acidez también muy elevado.
Okay, so he's saying, so key to Garnacha, like many, many different grape varieties, is finding this balance in its maturation. So it's finding this balance between sort of phenolic maturation, alcoholic content of the berry, and trying to find the optimal point for picking all these wines. So the alcohol in this particular wine, the Masusta, is around 14.5%. But Luis would like to also make very clear that the acidity as well really helps to balance this out and form a very sort of wine in equilibrium and with a nice sort of structure and balance between the two. So you don't notice a lot of alcohol or any burn from this at all. Okay, Luis.
El proyecto de LMT Wines, de acuerdo, de mismo ya Tortosa Wines, es un proyecto básicamente garnachista. ¿Por qué es un proyecto garnachista? Porque son las variedades de las viñas que ha habido en la zona. Navarra es una zona que ha sufrido bastantes arranques, ¿vale? Y bueno, es por eso que trabajamos un poco la garnacha, ¿no? Esto ha hecho que también estemos trabajando 2 pequeños viñedos de garnacha en la región administrativa de Navarra, pero denominación de origen Rioja.
So, I mean, Luis is also saying that, so historically, I mean, especially sort of recent history, Navarra has maybe suffered from having a lot of its very old Garnacha vineyards ripped up, unfortunately. And the idea of Luis is to try to recover some of this tradition and some of this history, especially as now Garnacha is such a fashionable and popular grape variety on the world stage as well. So he's saying, like he says, his project is mainly focused on using the Garnacha grape variety, and he has various different plots. So some of them fall within the Nevada denomination, but he also has a few plots that actually are still technically in Nevada, but fall within the Rioja denomination as well.
La cosecha 17 fue muy complicada, ¿vale? Vino motivada sobre todo por una gran helada. Tuvimos un invierno muy cálido, una brotación muy temprana que hizo que la helada de mayo nos hiciera tener bastantes pérdidas. Hablamos de que Masusta es un viñedo con el que podemos hacer un máximo de 4.000 botellas, ¿vale? Digamos que este año, el año 17, con 2.600, 2.400, es un nivel bajo de botellas. De acuerdo, por lo demás, bueno, pudimos alcanzar una buena madurez de la uva.
So he's saying, I believe you should be trying the 2017 vintage of the Masusta, which, so Luis was just explaining, it was a slightly complicated year because they had quite a lot of frost damage in the vineyard. And I mean, even on a good year, maybe he's only looking at sort of 4,000 bottles, as these are very low yielding old vines. So he suffered a reduction in yield, but he said the quality finally, despite some of the problems maybe earlier in the season, the quality of the wine was very good.
La idea se vendimia en cajas de máximo 16 kilogramos y bueno, llevamos a bodega, maceraciones, fermentaciones en torno a 16 días, 18, refrigeramos con garrafas de agua congelada, trabajamos, claramente es un producto artesano, depósitos de inoxidable de 1000 litros, ¿de acuerdo? Maceración corta, extraer poco para tener que evitar clarificar, filtrar los líquidos, ¿de acuerdo? Como ya hemos comentado, levadura bacteria indígena y luego pues crianza en roble siempre usado, muy usado, ¿no? La garnacha no es una variedad que tenga una gran aceptación a la madera y siempre tenemos que trabajar en niveles bajos de
Okay, yeah, so Luis is saying, so the harvest is always done manually. So he's collecting all the grapes in small boxes. He's actually saying over 16 kilos maximum. And then, so there's a short, so cold maceration time once it arrives to the bodega, followed by controlled fermentation. Always, I mean, these, we are essentially talking about micro fermentations at this level. And so, as we said before, it's always using indigenous yeast and indigenous bacteria to aid the fermentation. And it then spends some time in used oak. And so Luis wants to emphasize that maybe the garnacha can be quite a subtle grape variety, and sometimes aggressive use of oak, or maybe historically there has been an aggressive use of oak maybe in these wines. So he likes to use quite old barrels, so it imparts maybe a more subtle oak element to the wine. Okay, Luis.
Vale, hablamos un poco del vino, yo ya me acabo de servir un poquito, ¿no? Un poco, bueno, si vemos un poco el nivel de copa, el color siempre es muy abierto, son garnachas que no sangramos el mosto, no concentramos, como hemos explicado, fermentamos en frío, maceraciones cortas, es decir, colores muy abiertos, muy poca profundidad de color, ¿de acuerdo? Son vinos un poco de luz, ¿vale? Es un poco lo habitual en la garnacha.
Okay, so he's saying, so just talking through a bit of a tasting with the wine now. He's saying the color is maybe not as maybe deep and with so much depth as some other garnachas that perhaps are on the market. And this is mainly due to sort of the winemaking technique that he's used. So it's a relatively colder fermentation and a bit of cold maceration has maybe meant that there's not been quite so much extraction of all of these sort of color compounds that aid the wine. But it's a very open color and it's very sort of refreshing to look at.
Pregunta Corey que qué tipo de madera, ¿vale? En madera básicamente hablamos de todos los tipos de madera, es decir, roble francés, americano y una pequeña porción de roble navarro.
So he's saying, so he uses a mix of different oak in this wine. So it's actually oak from America and French oak, the typical ones. But he also uses oak from Nevada as well, which shares a lot of characteristics with French oak.
Aromáticamente, el perfil del vino, ¿vale? Nos encontramos con un perfil fruta suavecito, tipo cereza, pero con el predominio absoluto de aromas balsámicos, aromas a resina, resina de pino, tenemos laurel, tenemos tomillo. La garnacha es una variedad que aquí definimos en Navarra muy bien, creo que básicamente en todas las zonas de España con la capacidad de absorber el aroma de la vegetación que le rodea. ¿De acuerdo? No podemos ver las fotografías con todas esas hierbas que tengo para mi desgracia, ¿no? Pero sí que el aroma del vino está gobernado por todos esos aromas a resina, tomillo, laurel, ¿de acuerdo? A hierbas, balsámicos.
Okay, yeah, so Luis is saying, so within the wine, so you can find obviously some fruit characteristics, particularly cherry can be found within the wine, but there's also a lot of balsamic notes and a lot of herbal characteristics as well. So a lot of thyme and rosemary. And of course, these are all herbs that grow wild within the vineyard and the surrounding area. And he's saying garnacha has this incredible ability to reflect this area where it is grown. And it becomes sort of a very personalized sort of experience to this particular vineyard. Okay, Luis?
Ok, cuando metemos en boca tenemos esas notas un poquito de cereza, ¿de acuerdo? De frutita roja, suavecita, el vino entra en una entrada muy suave y luego ya nos encontramos un poco la estructura del vino, la rusticidad, ¿de acuerdo? Son vinos que están sin clarificar, sin maquillar, no añadimos gomas, nada, ¿no? Con lo cual tiene la textura, la profundidad, la rugosidad de, pues un poco de la viña, ¿no? Del entorno y que nos da, ¿no? Está en un punto muy, muy bueno. Bueno, hacía tiempo que no lo probaba y la verdad que me gusta.
Okay, so he's saying in mouth. So obviously you get, again, these fruit characteristics, a lot of red fruit, a lot of cherry, but you can also find a lot of structure within the wine. And he's saying he doesn't try to put a lot of, as he said, a lot of makeup on the wines. I mean, they are what they are. They're a reflection of the land that they come from. And he said, in the best possible way, you can maybe see some of the rustic qualities of the vineyard and of where this wine is produced. Okay, Luis.
Eso es un poco todo. No sé si tienen preguntas o...
Okay, yeah, so I don't know if there are any questions that anybody has at this point that they'd like to ask.
Yeah, just a couple that have come in to wrap up. First of all, the meaning of Masusta. Then
Okay.
questions around potential aging as well.
Ok, Masusta significa mora en euskera. Euskera es el idioma de Navarra, ¿vale? Del País Vasco. Es un idioma local, antiguo, ancestral. Y sí que, bueno, el antiguo propietario de la viña, había una zarzamora, una mora, que es una hierba silvestre, que siempre luchaban contra ella, intentaban cortar, herbicidas, tal cual, ¿no? Y en un momento dado se cansaron y la dejaron. Digamos que tenemos en medio del viñedo una gran zarza que, como define el paisaje, pues decidimos darle el nombre del vino. Así que en castellano mora, zarzamora es como muy usado, un poco aburrido, y en euskera nos daba ese juego de palabras que me asusta, que es mora, pero por otro lado, significado, un poco que te asusta en castellano, ¿no? Es un poco el juego.
Okay, so Masusta comes from the Basque language, which I'm sure you know is a very old language from this region of Spain, so obviously identified with the Basque country, but also Navarra as well. And it means blackberry. And within this vineyard, there is a huge unruly blackberry bush, which sort of forms quite a striking sort of landmark within the vineyard, as the vineyard sort of surrounds this blackberry bush, which is quite difficult to tame, I think, as it's become, yeah, like I say, quite unruly. Okay, and the other question was about the age of the barrels, correct? Yes.
No, just how long might think the wine might age.
Okay. Y Luis, ¿qué es tu opinión en, no sé, cuánto tiempo tú puedes guardar este vino o si es mejor beberlo ahora? O...
A mí me gustan hacer vinos pret-à-porter, digamos. Yo hago los vinos en bodega, hago las crianzas y normalmente este vino salió de barrica aproximada, déjame pensar, en enero de 2019. Y no lo embotellé hasta agosto del 19, es decir, me gusta hacer los vinos pret-à-porter para embotellar. Yo lo veo en un punto muy bueno, así que como embotello con poquito sulfuroso, puede ser tal vez un poco problemático. Pero bueno, yo creo que el vino está bueno y demás, y que puede aguantar todavía 2 años o 3 más. A partir del 1 de abril tendré la añada disponible 18, que bueno, que también cada año cambia un poco, hay años con más frescura, años con menos, años con más fruta, años con menos, ¿de acuerdo? Bueno, a lo que decías, yo creo que 2 años es más el vino tiene, aunque a mí me gusta beberme los vinos y no guardar.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so Lewis is saying, so for him personally, he prefers to drink the wines and not necessarily leave them for a long time. But he's saying, so this wine, with the characteristics of the year that it has, he says, in his opinion, is ready to drink now and is very good to drink now. But he said, absolutely, you could leave it for another 2 or 3 years without any problems at all. But obviously, the way he's making his wines, every year is different, essentially. So depending, you know, the fruit qualities and the acidity and the climatic conditions of the year is going to change for every vineyard, for every vintage.
Good. Just one question from me as well. Like all our producers today, actually, Louis farms organically as far as he can. Is that correct?
Entonces, Luis, toda tu agricultura es ecológico en todas las formas, ¿no?
Trabajamos en orgánico, en ecológico, todos los viñedos que trabajo yo, que son el 60%, ¿de acuerdo? Hay una parte de los viñedos corresponde más a quimera, donde trabajamos el suelo de forma ecológica, no utilizamos herbicidas, labramos, ¿vale? Pero tal vez esa línea podríamos hablar que no es orgánica 100%, la línea quimera, ¿vale? Es con crianza en tinaja que ya conozco. El resto de los vinos son orgánicos 100% y solamente certificado en mala sombra. Certificar los vinos para mí es un trabajo muy laborioso, muy complicado, porque no siempre trabajo con viñas propias, con lo cual, pues bueno, es una opción bonita, pero no es una opción real ahora mismo.
Yeah, okay, so he's saying, so he works organically in all of his vineyards. I think he said trabajas en ecológico en todos tus viñedos menos quimera, ¿verdad?
Eso es.
Yeah, so the Chimera wine, so this wine here, would be the only wine that maybe it's not 100% organic in its farming, but all of the others are completely organic, although they are not all certified as organic at the moment. As he's explaining, it's a very laborious process to get this certification. But in terms of philosophy and technique in the vineyard, he follows organic principles, yes.
Fantastic. We could talk about all the other wines and go on for a while, but I'm conscious of the time again. So I think
ha preguntado una persona sobre el maridaje perfecto o demás he visto. Vale.
He just wants to make a quick comment on what would be a very good food pairing for the wine.
Yes, please do. Yeah.
Yo pienso que el maridaje no existe, es decir, si te gusta el vino y te gusta la comida, nadie te tiene que venir a decir que esto pega o no pega, ¿no? Realmente mis armonías favoritas con Masusta, ¿vale? Queso, por ejemplo, que siempre es un maridaje muy complicado en quesos curados, quesos fuertes, este punto de entorno, de resina, ¿vale? Contrarresta muy bien el sabor del queso fuerte, muy bien con pescados, bacalao, de acuerdo, atunes, con carnes ligeras, costillas de cordero, no sé. En líneas generales son vinos que encajan bien con todo porque no están ni demasiado abstraídos ni son demasiado potentes, ¿de acuerdo?
Okay, so he's saying, so basically, so finding the absolutely correct wine and food pairing is maybe something that is very personal at the end of the day. But he's saying, you know, particularly maybe it's a wine that could be enjoyed with some aged cheeses. This is quite a common combination to be using, or maybe perhaps sort of grilled lamb chops would also be, I mean, certainly very typical for the region. And even some different dishes prepared with cod. Again, especially some of the very specialist or the local dishes that they prepare like this as well.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Like I say, it's not the only one we're doing from Louise. We've also got Mala Sombra, the 100% Graciano Rioja, which you can see just behind Chris's head there as well. That's gone down very well. But I think what we're going to do, we're hopefully introducing some producer in focus profile coming up. So we'll feature that. Maybe we'll speak to Louis again. But thank you very much for taking us through Masusta. Happy birthday again, as is
thank you,
we'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your birthday, and thanks Chris as well. That's a skill I wish I had. It's I tried to learn Spanish a little bit and I'm not picking up any of that, so it's definitely thank you very much for translating.
Just to interrupt very briefly, there's a couple of things that sort of got missed off there about Luis. He's just a phenomenal winemaker, but he started his career just working in a bar in Pamplona, and then he's slowly sort of worked his way up working in cooperatives. The cooperative went bust in 07. He's now a full-time barrel salesman, and that's something that I think is quite important and quite interesting and unique for one of our winemakers. But he uses that job to get to know different wineries really well, make lots of friends in the industry. And so that's how he sort of manages to find these insane parcels of land, and he gets to work in different wineries to make his wines. And it's very much a hobby for him at the moment, but the quality is incredible. Masusta was the first wine he ever made, so it used to have a very, very rustic label, and only recently has it been designed. And it's also won an award. Chris, can you just confirm what that award was that Luis won for Masusta?
Yeah. Y Luis, tienes un premio para el vino Masusta, ¿no?
En 2014 ganó el premio Mileurismo Gourmet, que es un concurso underground que se hacen para vinos un poco underground, sí, así. Fue en 2014, creo, en España.
In 2014, he won an award for the Masusta wine, which is quite well known within Spain, yes.
But it was, I think, best small production wine under 10 euros or something silly.
Se fue el mejor vino de menos 10 euros o algo así, ¿no?
Efectivamente, sobre los 10 euros.
Yeah, so you're saying yes,
no pude subir los precios.
Yeah, so you're saying it was categorized as the best wine for, I think it was around 10 euros or sub 10 euros for that year, yes. And yeah, he's saying now that unfortunately he can't raise the price of the wine now.
Yeah.
Perfect.
If only it was £10 once it had got through the government's hands over here, but it's still worth every penny, I think. Yeah, thank you very much, Louis. Thanks, Chris. Like I say, we're going to do some producer and focus. We'll give you a load more info on Louis as we go over the next few weeks as well. So yeah, thanks very much everyone for joining us today. Again, if you've got any more questions that come up, pop them over to an email, Twitter, Instagram, anything like that. The video will be on YouTube by the end of the week, and next week, like I say, we've got made by Moreno, which is going to be a little bit different. Actually, we're going to showcase some hugely important wines to us and how we go about getting those into our portfolio. So really look forward to seeing you then. But yeah, thank you very much for joining today, and enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.